I'm going to read the first two parts, probably the first half of the story. It's called Señor Burbujas. Thursdays are the only day of the week I've pinpointed that Alejandra always works. Well, I don't actually mind going into Ebenezer's, ordering a small coffee, dumping in a few creams and sugars at random, and making out a conversation on their couch for a couple minutes like an underworked university student. And, of course, surreptitiously pitching the still full cup into the trash on my way out. It all seems like something a creepy person would do. I might just as well purchase a pair of binoculars and an old rusted-out van with shag carpeting and set up shop across the street. Today, Alejandra's wearing her standard Ebenezer's apron and a sweater with its sleeves rolled up. Beneath her makeup, the puffy outline of a black eye. She has only two customers at the moment, myself and an old guy in overalls who's standing in front of me. It's early still for students, and the tables and sofas at Ebenezer's are all empty. A UPS van idles momentarily in the spot out front, dropping off a regular delivery of unroasted coffee and cup sleeves. When the front door squeaks shut for that second time, it's just the two of us left. The usual, she asks me, smiling just like last Thursday. I want to say no. I want to say, lock the front door, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and sit the fuck down. Because every Thursday I come here and spend 2 minutes chatting with you about the barest details of your life, and I want you to know why. I would add, I hate coffee, I loathe the way your university customers stare at anyone who isn't surrounded by academic air. Furthermore, I want to rip the throat out of whoever did that to you. Yep, I say. As she's about to pour the coffee into a glass mug, I make some sort of interrupting sound and motion toward the door like I've got a bus to catch. I do have a bus to catch, but the to-go gesture still seems feeble. I usually try to talk to Alejandro about things obliquely, about classes, life, family, like any other customer who's really just waiting for his order. For once, given the circumstances, I wonder whether or not I can push just a touch harder. Doorknob? I ask quietly, pointing to my own eye. For a moment there's nothing, just the blank stare of a pretty university student with her arm outstretched, holding a cup of coffee that is not long for this world. After what may be a moment or much longer, she smiles and replies, "No, asshole, that's your eyeball." As she hands me my order, she adds, "Don't come back." I hear the door squeak shut behind me, and I'm sure that I pass by certain noticeable things after I leave Ebenezer's, walk to the bus stop, catch the 41C, and finally arrive back in the quieter outskirts of town. After 6 months of lake-effect snowfall, springtime in upstate New York is like a technicolor Arctic thaw. One would presume that at least some small amount of sensory data would trickle in during the 30-minute bus ride. But as I approach the laundromat, that most familiar destination as of late, my only sense is the last warmth of a full cup of coffee. And my only concern is what the hell I'm going to tell Mr. Bubbles. There's no table up here. Alright, we're good. Even before the laundromat's front door has fully shut behind me, it's obvious something's amiss. One of the dryers near the change machines is spinning, and I can see the occasional sock and brightly colored undergarment press up against the machine's front portal. I don't see anyone, and I do a quick circuit around the central aisle of machines to confirm that no one's tucked away in a dusty corner somewhere, reading a novel or, more plausibly, napping while their laundry finishes. The few customers that he does get don't really read much. "Senor!" I yell in the back, behind the counter. "The customer!" I do not call him Mr. Bubbles to his face. No one does. This is because, in his words, there are only two types of people in this world. Those who call him Señor Burbujas, and gringos who want to punch in the face. "Senor!" I call again. Nothing. He's either sleeping or going to the bathroom, which means I'm better off not looking for him. Aside from the main centralized space of washing machines and dryers, 15 of each, stacked in beige pairs, the building really only has that front counter and the small space behind the front counter, enough for 2 chairs and 2 people to work comfortably, hidden from anyone outside, plus the dry cleaning room, a small bathroom, and the generously sized utility closet that doubles as Mr. Bubbles' sleeping quarters. People often think he lives here because he's committed to his work. In a sense, this is absolutely true. I set my backpack on the counter next to the register, accidentally knocking over the remaining wooden pieces from a game of Jenga. This is not a good sign. The tipsy edifice of rectangular blocks scatters across the counter and onto the floor, each block hitting the hard concrete with a sharp punk, like a wooden balloon popping. This is not a good sign at all. Yesterday evening, this counter was covered in newspaper, with more stalks of sticky green bugs on top of it than Mr. Bubbles could have possibly trimmed by himself in the time since. At the very least, there aren't any leaves obviously hiding underneath the lip of the register, and the smell of resinous herb has since been replaced by the clinical lemons of pine salt. I'll admit, it could be worse. The laundromat could be on fire again. I could have arrived to find Mr. Bubbles sleeping soundly on a pillow of marijuana with the door open again. Sometimes, I think I wouldn't mind punching Mr. Bubbles in the face. But I wouldn't. The hell are you yelling about, pendejo? This, coming from a man wearing only a striped yellow undershirt and fluorescent pink boxers with Pac-Man characters, carrying a laundry basket, clumping out from his utility closet/bedroom in a pair of brown dress shoes. Splinters, he explains confidently, although none of his floors are wooden. Laundry day, he adds, brushing past me and pointing with his lips to the spinning dryer, as if to explain everything that's happened since I left last night. In Costa Rica, he continues, this crap takes folks all day. You get a pila, some hard as ball soap, and a bucket for well water. Here, I don't even have to go outside. Here, I just wear whatever I damn well please. You can imagine him 20 years back, up to his elbows in soap bubbles, daydreaming of big American women, wearing the exact same outfit. I'm prepared to say something awful and arguably deserved when Mr. Bubbles notices that his wooden tower has fallen. He glances at my backpack, in a manner in which perhaps half the fallen wooden pieces have since been shoddily reassembled to resemble the original unknocked version. Plus the fact that I'm giving him the finger and pointing at the spot on the counter where a big pile of herb once rested. Fine, he says. Fuck you. Fuck you, and fuck your backpack. It keeps falling down anyway. He walks over to the dryer and starts moving clothes. There are 2 scheduled shipments in the delivery book. 5 pounds headed out to Oakland later this week. 3 days to, that wasn't intentional, 3 days to mail, give or take, plus the largest shipment we owe to a dispensary in Boulder. Mr. Bubbles knows this. He's acutely aware of these deadlines, and yet he embodies none of this urgency while folding his underwear and whistling. I stopped for coffee this morning, I say, walking over to the front door to lock up. Okay? Mr. Bubbles turns sharply, dropping his sock. Ebenezer's, Alejandra, it's Thursday. I swear I have a calendar. How is she? Mr. Bubbles walks over and stands right next to me, uncomfortably close, peering out across the empty street to a field of grazing dairy cattle. The laundromat looks out on the farmland and a hill covered in dogwoods and Portland apple orchards. How anyone ever said to themselves, what a perfect place to build a 30-machine laundromat and dry cleaning business, is beyond me. And my only guess as to why Mr. Bubbles ended up buying said laundromat is that the location itself reminds him a little of home. He's too busy to talk much, I reply. Oh, he says, without turning towards me. Did she look happy, at least? Maybe we should think about changing our approach. He pauses. Actually, I've been thinking. Dear God, I think, please not the creepy van. You know, maybe you should go over there yourself at some point, I say. It's not the first time I've suggested this, but he doesn't immediately dismiss it this time. I constantly have to wonder what it's like not to have seen one's own daughter in years. A brief silence hangs between us, like a passing cloud. I'm about to walk over to the front counter to start preparing things when I feel Mr. Bubbles' hand clamped firmly on my left shoulder, holding me in place without really spinning me around. Listen, he says quietly. I think to myself, this is it. This is when it all comes out. The Jenga relapse, the reason he never finishes his trimming assignments, the methodology by which he hasn't already handled this entire situation with his traditional Mr. Bubbles-like bravado. But I also listen to the clunks of the laundry machine, to the calming whir of the air conditioning units, and dehumidifiers in the dry cleaning room. When he turns around and asks me, how's your mom? It feels like a punchline, a cruel joke. But there's nothing suggestive of humor in his face. If anything, Mr. Bubbles looks at me with the opposite of malice, and I'm able to catch myself before reacting poorly. There are certain lines he and I would never cross with each other, certain common understandings that form the very core of our friendship and business venture. I should know better. The hospital calls if there's a problem. I tell him nothing's changed. Mr. Bubbles knows this, of course. He wanted to say something else. He remains standing near the front window, pretending to stare at something in the distance, as I finish locking the front doors and switch off the open sign. I shut the blinds and put the phone on top of the register, the one place where I'm certain it gets reception. His laundry, neatly folded into symmetric piles, I dump onto his mattress. The Jenga pieces go into a garbage bag, where they will ideally remain for eternity, though experience suggests otherwise. In just a few minutes, I've managed to return the front counter to its streamlined former self. Newspaper, pruning shears, drying racks, 2 small buckets, and a few pounds of untrimmed cush. I toss the bag of Jenga pieces towards the front door, rousing Mr. Bubbles from his momentary stupor. He walks over to the small television hanging above the central row of washing machines and switches to the Discovery Channel. Shark Week, he explains. There's something I should probably tell you, I begin. Is it that you're afraid of sharks? I feigned careful consideration for a moment. Yes, it is. Good, says Mr. Bubbles, ruffling my hair like a father would. For a short while afterwards, everything feels like it's going to be just fine. Two of us take our respective seats behind the front counter, and so the air again smells of pine and herbal tea, the resins coating our fingertips, the counter a complete mess. I don't understand why this strain sells at such a premium out west, but there you go. It flowers quickly and pull a quarter-pound a plant every few months, and we're not exactly running a non-profit here. There are bills, there are responsibilities. We watch small schools of sharks negotiate the shallow waters of the Caribbean, and Mr. Bubbles points out the species that he knows, the plants and vines lining the shores that he remembers from home. It's been a long time since he's been back, almost 20 years, to his Pila coastal village. There's a distance in his voice, a hesitancy. But it's not until after we're finished and cleaned up that he finally admits, clearly and firmly, that he wants out.